Every generation produces men who refuse to bow down, men who lead not because they want power but because they want change. In Africa, a young soldier rose with courage. In America, a dreamer built machines to conquer the stars. Ibrahim Traoré, Elon Musk. Different paths, same fire. Their stories carry a lesson for you. In a world where influence shapes the destiny of nations and industries, two figures rise from completely different worlds, yet both command attention on the global stage. Ibrahim Traoré, the young soldier turned leader from Burkina Faso, and Elon Musk, the billionaire innovator behind companies like Tesla and SpaceX, seem to have nothing in common at first glance. One fights for sovereignty, dignity, and the liberation of his people. The other pushes the limits of human imagination by building rockets, electric cars, and artificial intelligence. But when you look closer, a deeper connection begins to emerge. Both are symbols of daring leadership. Both represent the audacity to challenge established powers, and both remind us that true influence comes not from comfort but from courage. Their paths are radically different, but their essence tells us something powerful about leadership, struggle, and vision. This story is not about who is greater, but about how two men in different corners of the world reflect the timeless lessons of leadership that can inspire us all. Ibrahim Traoré was only in his 30s when he shocked the world by rising to power in Burkina Faso. In a continent where leadership is often associated with older, seasoned politicians, he appeared as a fresh force, a young man with military boots still covered in dust, standing against colonial influence, foreign exploitation, and terrorism that had plagued his country for years. He spoke with the fire of someone who carried not just personal ambition but the weight of an entire nation on his shoulders. His speeches echoed in villages and cities, where ordinary people saw in him a reflection of their own struggles, their desire for dignity, and their dream of a better future. His leadership wasn't polished in elite schools or boardrooms, it was forged in the harsh realities of Africa's battles for freedom. For many, Traoré symbolized hope, a reminder that leadership is not about age or wealth, but about courage, conviction, and sacrifice. On the other side of the world, Elon Musk followed a path that could not be more different. From the boy who read science fiction in South Africa, to the man who built one of the most valuable companies on earth, Musk's journey is defined by relentless innovation and a refusal to accept limits. When he said he would create reusable rockets, many laughed. When he promised a world of electric cars, critics doubted the possibility. When he spoke of colonizing Mars, people dismissed him as a dreamer. And yet, with each bold step, Musk transformed not only industries but the imagination of humanity. His leadership style is not about political speeches or defying empires, but about building the future, showing the world that technology, when pushed to its extremes, can change the destiny of civilizations. At first, you may think Traoré and Musk belong to different universes, but if you listen carefully, you will find the thread that connects them, the will to challenge the impossible. Traoré challenges the political and military powers that sought to keep his nation in dependency, while Musk challenges the technological and financial powers that insist progress must follow safe, predictable paths. Both take risks that most people would never dare. Both face resistance, criticism, and even hatred, and both carry the weight of millions who look to them for hope. Leadership in any form demands sacrifice. For Traoré, the sacrifice is personal safety. Leading a country through conflict, resisting the pressure of global powers, and standing against terrorism means living every day with the shadow of danger. Yet he does not back down, because for him, leadership is about putting the people first. For Musk, the sacrifice is different. He risks billions, his reputation, and countless sleepless nights for ideas that may fail. He has tasted failure many times, from rockets exploding mid-air to financial collapse threatening Tesla. And yet each failure became fuel. Each loss became motivation, because leadership for him means carrying a vision that goes beyond himself. What unites them is not their methods but their mindset. Both understand that leadership is about inspiring people to believe in something greater. Traoré inspires people to believe in the dignity and independence of Africa. Musk inspires people to believe in the limitless potential of human innovation. Traoré's words fuel the hearts of his people. Musk's creations fuel the imagination of the world. And in both cases, the lesson is clear. True leadership is not about comfort, it is about courage. When we look at Traoré, we see the lesson of standing firm against overwhelming odds. We see that age, resources, and external pressure cannot silence a leader who has conviction. For anyone struggling in life, his story whispers, you don't need to wait for permission to rise, you only need the courage to stand. And when we look at Musk, we see the lesson of vision. We see that dreams that seem crazy today may shape the future of tomorrow. For anyone chasing a dream, his story shouts, don't fear ridicule, don't fear failure, because every step forward creates a path for others to follow. The world measures influence in different ways: political power, economic might, technological achievement. But at the core, influence comes from daring to lead. Traoré dares to defy colonial chains, Musk dares to defy gravity itself. And we, the observers, must ask ourselves, What chains are holding us back? What gravity are we willing to fight against? Because leadership is not reserved for presidents or billionaires. Leadership is a mindset, a choice we make when we decide to stand, to create, to fight, and to inspire. As their stories unfold, we realize something profound. Leadership is not about the path you take, but the principles you carry. Traoré's battlefield is political. Musk's battlefield is technological. But both remind us that leadership is ultimately about service. Service to people. Service to humanity. Service to the future. They remind us that the greatest leaders are those who dare to dream differently and are willing to sacrifice for those dreams. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all is this: leadership is contagious. When one man dares to rise, he lights a fire in the hearts of others. Traoré's speeches awaken the youth of Africa to believe in themselves. Musk's rockets awaken the youth of the world to look up at the stars. And somewhere in a village or a small town, a young person is watching, listening, and realizing, if they can, so can I. Their influence may differ, their methods may clash, but their message is the same. The world belongs to those who dare. And maybe that is the true secret of leadership. Whether you stand on the political stage or the launch pad of a rocket, whether you speak to a nation or invent technology that transforms lives, leadership begins when you stop being afraid of the impossible. But leadership is never without a price. For Traoré, the price is isolation. The international community often questions his decisions, criticizes his alliances, and paints him as controversial. Yet he stands tall, reminding the world that Africa does not need to ask for approval to protect its own dignity. His speeches echo with defiance, messages that say to his people, you have the right to decide your own future no matter who stands against you. It is not the kind of leadership that wins applause from global powers, but it is the kind of leadership that earns loyalty from the masses who see him as their protector. That loyalty, born from authenticity, is the most powerful currency a leader can hold. For Musk, the price is often loneliness. The life of a visionary is rarely understood by those around him. While the world celebrates his success today, it often forgets the ridicule and doubt he endured. Bankers laughed when he risked his entire fortune to keep Tesla alive. Journalists mocked when SpaceX rockets exploded. Experts dismissed his dream of making space travel cheaper and sustainable. Yet he kept moving forward, fueled by the belief that failure was only a stepping stone to progress. His leadership teaches us something essential. Greatness often requires walking a lonely road, because true vision is only visible to the one who carries it. If we strip away the details of politics and technology, what remains is the heart of leadership itself: resilience. Traoré's resilience is forged in the fire of resistance against forces that want to control his nation. Musk's resilience is forged in the failures of engineering experiments that could have ruined his career. Both prove that the essence of leadership is not in never falling, but in rising again and again, stronger than before. And this lesson is universal. It applies not only to presidents and billionaires, but to every person who dares to chase a dream, defend a principle, or lead a family through hardship. Imagine for a moment the courage it takes to stand against giants. Traoré stands against the political and economic systems that have shaped Africa for centuries. Musk stands against industries that were comfortable in their dominance. Oil companies, traditional automakers, aerospace monopolies. Both fight enemies far larger than themselves. And yet both succeed because they understand a secret. Giants are not defeated by size, but by persistence. The same secret applies to all of us. When life feels overwhelming, when challenges seem impossible, the question is not how strong you are at the start, but how long you are willing to keep going when everything pushes you to stop. What is also striking about these two men is how they embody different faces of influence. Traoré embodies the warrior, the fighter who shields his people and dares to shout at the world's powerful institutions. Musk embodies the dreamer, the builder who creates what others cannot even imagine. And both faces are needed in the world. Without warriors, nations remain weak. Without dreamers, humanity remains stagnant. Together they remind us that influence is not one-dimensional. It can be fierce and protective, or visionary and inventive. And leadership often requires a blend of both. Think about history. Every great change came because someone refused to accept the status quo. Nelson Mandela refused to accept apartheid. Martin Luther King Jr. refused to accept racial injustice. Steve Jobs refused to accept that computers couldn't be beautiful and personal. Traoré refuses to accept that Africa must remain dependent. Musk refuses to accept that humanity must remain confined to one planet. Different battles, same principle. Change is born when a leader dares to refuse. And yet leadership is not only about refusal, it is also about creation. Refusal breaks chains, but creation builds futures. Traoré refuses dependency, but also creates a vision for a self-reliant Africa. Musk refuses stagnation, but also creates rockets, cars, and technologies that redefine possibility. Their stories remind us that leadership is a dance between destruction and construction. You destroy what holds you back and you construct what moves you forward. In our own lives, the same applies. We must refuse to accept limitations imposed by fear, society, or failure, and then we must build new paths with determination and creativity. It is tempting to place leaders on pedestals, to believe they are somehow different from us, born with unique powers. But the truth is, both Traoré and Musk began as ordinary individuals. Traoré was a young man who could have chosen a quiet life, but instead chose to fight for his nation. Musk was a boy with a love for books and computers, who could have lived comfortably but instead chased impossible dreams. What sets them apart is not superhuman ability, but superhuman persistence. They show us that leadership is not about where you start, but about how far you are willing to go. Look deeper and you will find another shared quality: responsibility. Both carry burdens heavier than most can imagine. For Traoré, it is the responsibility of every child in Burkina Faso who deserves to grow up without fear of war or hunger. For Musk, it is the responsibility of every future generation who may one day look to Mars as humanity's second home. This responsibility is what separates leaders from dreamers. Leaders not only imagine, they carry the weight of turning imagination into reality. And that weight is not light, but when embraced, it becomes the fuel that drives them forward. We may ask, what does all of this mean for us? After all, most of us are not presidents or billionaires. But here lies the most powerful truth. The principles of leadership apply to every life, no matter how small or large the stage. When you protect your family in times of crisis, you are a Traoré. When you create something new despite fear of failure, you are a Musk. When you refuse to bow to injustice, when you take risks for your dreams, when you carry responsibility for others, you are practicing leadership. And leadership at its core is not about fame, but about service. It is about making choices that matter, even when no one is watching. The stories of Traoré and Musk also teach us about timing. Sometimes the world underestimates the power of a single moment. Traoré rose at a time when his people were desperate for change, and his courage met their hunger for dignity. Musk pushed forward at a time when the world was beginning to fear climate change and dream of space exploration. Leadership is not only about strength, but about recognizing the right moment to act. The lesson for us is clear. Opportunities often come disguised as crises. The leaders we admire are simply those who recognize the moment and dare to step into it. And perhaps the most important lesson is that both men remind us leadership is not permanent. It is a journey. Traoré will face more challenges, more opposition, more tests of his resolve. Musk will face more failures, more criticism, more obstacles on his path to Mars and beyond. Leadership is never a single act, but a continuous choice, renewed every day. And for us too, leadership is not about a single victory or achievement. It is about waking up each morning and choosing to fight for what matters, to dream beyond fear, to stand even when standing is hard. When we put all of this together, we realize why these two men capture the imagination of millions despite being so different. They remind us of something ancient, something that has always been true. The world changes because of leaders who dare. Empires, industries, and nations rise and fall, but the principle never changes. Leadership is not a title, it is action. It is the spark that turns fear into courage, doubt into vision, and weakness into strength. But let us not forget, leadership is a mirror. When we look at Ibrahim Traoré, we see not just one man, but the reflection of millions of Africans yearning for dignity. When we look at Elon Musk, we see not just one innovator, but the reflection of millions of dreamers who quietly hope the impossible can become possible. Leaders amplify the silent voices of their people. They give form to desires that most are too afraid to say aloud. That is why their stories feel larger than life, because in them we see a part of ourselves. A part that wants to be brave. A part that wants to be limitless. The path of leadership, however, is never straight. It twists with betrayal, pressure, and self-doubt. Traoré faces whispers from within his own land. People who question if he is too young, too bold, too unpolished to hold power. Musk faces doubts from investors, employees, and critics who say he takes on too much, too fast, too recklessly. Every leader must carry the burden of skepticism. Because the higher you rise, the more the world watches for your fall. Yet it is in these moments, when the weight of doubt threatens to crush you, that true leadership emerges. The easy choice is to surrender. The hard choice is to push forward despite uncertainty. And history remembers only those who chose the hard road. Consider the loneliness of conviction. There are nights when Traoré sits in silence, knowing that powerful nations plot against him. There are nights when Musk works alone in his factory, staring at designs that the world calls impossible. Leadership often means being alone with your belief, carrying a vision that no one else sees until the results are undeniable. This is why so few become leaders, because so few are willing to stand alone. But for those who do, the reward is extraordinary. the chance to reshape the future. The beauty of leadership lies in its paradox. It is heavy with responsibility, yet it is also light with purpose. It crushes the weak, yet it elevates the strong. It isolates, yet it unites. Traoré's leadership isolates him from powerful nations, but unites him with his people. Musk's leadership isolates him from doubters, but unites him with believers in human progress. The paradox is the test. Will you focus on the weight or on the purpose? Leaders who survive are those who anchor themselves not in the burden, but in the vision of what lies ahead. We live in an age where leadership is more needed than ever. The world drowns in noise, distraction, and fear. Nations are divided. Technology is advancing faster than morality. Climate is shifting. Economies are unstable. In such times, people look desperately for figures who can rise above chaos. That is why Traoré and Musk capture our attention. They are symbols of clarity in a world clouded with confusion. One shows us the courage to fight. The other shows us the courage to create. And together they remind us that courage is the foundation of every form of leadership. But courage alone is not enough. Leadership must be married with endurance. A single act of bravery can inspire for a day, but endurance inspires for a lifetime. Musk's rockets may explode, but he launches again. Traoré may face sanctions, but he speaks again. Their consistency is what makes their stories powerful. In our own lives too, the consistency of our choices defines us more than the brilliance of a single moment. Anyone can be brave once, few can be brave every day. That is the mark of true leadership. And still, leadership is not about perfection. Both men are human, filled with flaws, mistakes, and contradictions. Musk is criticized for his unpredictable behavior, his impulsive words, his relentless pressure on employees. Traoré is questioned for the risks he takes, the alliances he chooses, the methods he employs. Yet their flaws do not erase their leadership. If anything, they make their stories more real. Because leadership has never required perfection. It has only required the will to rise again and again, even after falling short. We must remember this when we judge ourselves. Our mistakes do not disqualify us from leading. They prepare us. The legacy of leadership is measured not in the present but in the future. Will Traoré succeed in making Africa more independent? Time will tell. Will Musk succeed in making humanity a multiplanetary species? Time will tell. But the true measure is already written because both dared to try. Legacies are not born only from success, they are born from the audacity to attempt what others fear. The very act of trying to lift a nation or transform humanity is itself a victory because it shifts the boundaries of what others believe is possible. So, what do we learn when we place their stories side by side? We learn that leadership is not a single shape. It does not always wear a suit or hold a title or own a company. Sometimes it wears military fatigues in a dusty African city. Sometimes it wears a black t-shirt in a high-tech factory. Leadership adapts, but its essence remains the same. To stand when others kneel, to speak when others are silent, to dream when others doubt. And this essence is available to all of us, if we are willing to pay the price. The question then is not whether Traoré or Musk are great leaders. The question is whether we are willing to lead in our own lives. Leadership may not call you to govern a nation or colonize Mars. It may call you to raise children with values, to build a small business with integrity, to fight against injustice in your community, or simply to refuse giving up when life pushes you down. These are not small acts. They are the seeds of greatness, because they carry the same principles as the leaders we admire. If we strip everything away, one truth remains: leadership is service. Traoré serves his people. Musk serves humanity's future. And in our own lives, leadership is measured by whom we serve. Do we serve only ourselves, or do we serve a cause bigger than us? When we choose service, we choose impact. And impact, no matter the scale, is the true reward of leadership. The world may try to convince you that you are too small, too powerless, too ordinary to make a difference. But remember this: every leader we admire was once told the same. Every leader once stood where you stand. Now faced with doubt, facing the choice of surrender or persistence. The difference between those who change the world and those who do not is not power or wealth or genius. It is choice. The choice to believe that your actions matter. The choice to rise when it is easier to fall. The choice to lead, even when you feel unworthy of the title. And so as we reflect on Ibrahim Traoré and Elon Musk, let us not simply admire them. Let us learn from them. Let us carry their lessons into our own struggles, our own dreams, our own journeys. Because leadership is not theirs alone, it is ours, waiting within us, asking to be awakened. The world may never know your name as it knows theirs. But the people whose lives you touch, the dreams you protect, the future you shape, those will be your legacy. And legacies are never small. And here is the truth that echoes across time: leaders are not chosen by destiny. They are chosen by choice. Ibrahim Traoré chose to rise when his people called. Elon Musk chose to rise when the future demanded. Neither man was born ready. Neither man had all the answers. But both were willing to step into the fire, willing to carry the weight that others refused. And that above all is the essence of leadership, a willingness to begin, even when the path is unclear. The world today is waiting for new leaders. Not just presidents, not just billionaires, but ordinary people with extraordinary resolve. The mother who teaches her child to never bow to injustice. The teacher who inspires curiosity where there is only despair. The young person who refuses to let poverty, fear, or doubt define their limits. These two are leaders. These two are voices of change. Because leadership does not ask where you were born, or how much you own. It only asks, will you rise when it matters most? When Traoré walks through the streets of Ouagadougou, he does not walk alone. He carries with him the weight of an entire generation that dares to dream of an Africa free from chains. When Musk stands inside the factory where rockets are built, he does not stand alone. He carries with him the weight of millions who dare to believe that humanity belongs to the stars. Their courage becomes a beacon, their actions a map, their persistence a fire that lights the way forward. And that same fire waits to be lit within you. Do not underestimate what one spark can do. A single act of courage can inspire thousands. A single refusal to surrender can create movements. A single dream can shape the destiny of nations. Leadership is not reserved for the chosen few. It is a light that anyone can carry if only they dare to hold it high. And the world, drowning in fear and doubt, is desperate for those who will hold that light. So ask yourself, what will your leadership look like? Perhaps it will not be seen on television screens or written in history books, but perhaps it will live in the life of someone you saved from despair, in the opportunity you create for someone who had none, in the small victories you refuse to surrender. These are the silent revolutions, the unseen battles that shape the fabric of our future. And every one of us has the power to fight them. In the end, leadership is not about being remembered, it is about leaving behind a world that remembers hope. Traoré fights for it in Africa, Musk builds for it in the stars, and you too can carry it in your corner of the earth. The question is not whether you are ready, the question is whether you will choose. Because the future does not wait for the prepared, it belongs to the brave. And maybe one day when history looks back, it will tell the story of a young soldier who stood against empires. It will tell the story of a dreamer who turned science fiction into reality. And it will tell the story of a countless ordinary people like you, who decided to lead and in doing so change the course of tomorrow. This is the call. This is the challenge. This is the moment. Will you answer it?